I've been doing this game dev stuff more full-time for more than 2 years now, and to be honest, I kind of didn't expect it to go this long. So, as is tradition, once every year basically, I sit down on a grey couch and I talk about how the experience has been and what I've been learning about it. So if you're new here, I think about 25 months ago at this point, I think my final workday was the 31st of March 2023. I quit my job earning over $100,000 a year, working as a data center engineer or like architect or whatever made up term they gave me for Cisco. And I did something that a lot of people, including me, could consider stupid. I went into full-time game development and I did this YouTube on the side as well, or YouTube primary, I don't know exactly anymore. I think it was a 50-50 split. And the first year I made $0. I'm happy to say now that that isn't the case anymore. And for the past 6 months, I think, we've been able to consistently pay ourselves out. Now, this is a very long journey, of course, because it meant that for the first 18 months, basically, I earned $0, even though the company may have earned some money, I didn't. And I want to talk about some of the things that I've been learning, because I don't think there's many game developers on YouTube, to be honest, who managed to survive for this long. This sounds like weird maybe, but 2 years is a long time basically already to just do game development, especially when you don't have any massive breakout hits and whatever. We've had some successes, but definitely there is still room for improvement for us as well. I'll give you a very quick rundown of the previous 2 years so you kind of are up to speed to the BiteMe lore, and then I'll talk a bit more about what I've been learning. The first video I made was about a month after I had quit my job. And how did BiteMe Games look at that point? Pretty bad, to be honest. We had 0 released games. We were still months out from releasing our first game, and there were a lot of problems with the game set that we just didn't know about back then. And I think our YouTube channel was at about 400 subscribers. Bear in mind, I've been doing YouTube at that point for more than a year already. Honestly, these were numbers that definitely weren't going to indicate any sort of success, but we persevered. And the next year, so last year basically, 1 year ago, I made a video of like, hey, we've made some money, we've actually released 1 game, but I still haven't been able to pay myself out at all basically. We were barely covering expenses for the company just with like Steam revenue and all that. Because the first game we released, I think lifetime earnings right now is at like $10,000, which over a 2-year time span isn't amazing. Well, now we've released like 3 more games at this point. Our YouTube channel has grown pretty considerably still. It definitely slowed down a bit, but it's getting more hopeful. I am not gonna be driving around in a Lamborghini anytime soon, I can tell you that. I think there are some things where the last year we finally become real game developers. I kind of want to see it like that. Like, I think there was a shift in how we acted, how we thought, and all of that basically around 6-7 months ago, I would say. Especially in the beginning of like last year in June and July, I was still getting into things like, it takes time to get good at stuff. And I think that is one of the problems that a lot of people don't account for when they do decide to go full-time and have a limited runway of, let's say, 9 months or a year or whatever. That's often not enough time. I think we're lucky to have survived this long because now we can get started with game development for realsies. So let's just talk you through what happened in the last year, especially in the terms of game development, because this has become our main source of income. Surprising, right? A game development studio on YouTube that makes money from games? Could it be? It started pretty rough. It started with cancellation and then more cancellations basically. We were working back then on what we thought was going to be our big break game because we come all from a programming background. Maybe for context, our studio consists of 3 people working on it. 2 of them are full-time and 1 is still doing it kind of full-time work-wise, hour-wise, but he's still getting paid from his regular software engineering job. And we're like, okay, we've made a management game before. And then we tried making a roguelite, it wasn't good. Okay, let's go back to that management game, because we're programmers, right? So it must be easy to make a management game, right? Not a lot of people can do that. The answer to that is no. Knowing how to program does not make you a good game designer, does not give you good gameplay mechanics and all of that. And the game kind of fizzled to a slow death, and we ended up canceling that game in about August last year. Now, the problem was that we were faced with that reality of like, look, Forge Industry at that point was earning about $100 a month or something. YouTube was like 300, Patreon was I think 600. So we're making €1,000 or $1,000 a month. That's not enough. There was no way that month was gonna work out. And we had to do a Hail Mary. And I think we succeeded in that Hail Mary because we made a game in 1 month that is to this date our most successful game we've ever made. Unicycle Pizza Time, you maybe have heard me talk about it for a long time at this point. It's a game, it's a streamer-paid game, where I just basically went to like an industry conference, Develop Brighton, and everyone there was talking about like what's now called the friend slop games before it actually existed, or like friend baiting games like Repo, Content Warning, Murky Divers, and every month there's a new flavor of this style of game, where the focus was on very good replayability and the multiplayer aspect. And the rest of the game kind of didn't matter as much. Just getting it out there very quickly, having some replayability, having that multiplayer, having janky physics. And we were like, okay, fuck it, we'll try it ourselves. And we ended up making a precision platformer, like rage bait style game, where you control a unicycle, you can go through the level with up to 4 people. And we shipped that game start to finish, from getting the idea to actually pushing the release button, in 1 month, which I think is something that is an extremely short development cycle. And this game to this date has earned like, I think $25,000 gross or even more. It's been a pretty good success, I would say, especially considering the time we put into it and the long tail that this game has had. Now, after that, it wasn't really amazing because we were kind of stuck on what to do next. And we were going to go back to those bigger games now because we had a bit more stability and a bit more knowledge and want to do more multiplayer. So we wanted to make a survivor-like and wanted to make a multiplayer survivor-like, because back when we came up with that idea, didn't fully exist yet, not really. By now, a bunch of multiplayer survivor-likes have hit the market and it wouldn't make as much sense anymore, but that's when we got to Magical Gold Guardians, a game that we canceled, I think, after 4 months of development, something like that, because of visual issues, because of content issues, and because of just multiplayer being a straight-up bitch to work with. Then another game that we were working on was a top-down city builder. The idea there was, once again, a short-scoped Viking city builder. Problem is, once again, art. This is going to be a repeating thing for us. Art is always a big problem because we do not have any artists, and guys, we do not have budget for artists, and revenue shares, be honest with yourselves, they do not work, especially not at the scale that we're at. So we had to find things that we could do with assets and whatever. We ended up canceling that game, the cozy Viking city builder, I think after 2 months or something. And I think that's when things started lifting up a bit, because we were faced with that reality of, look, we need to survive. And that meant we made games like Overtime Anomaly, which I think is a really good game, honestly, that just didn't get the success we were hoping for, even though the game is objectively better than games like Unicycle Pizza Time, and it's the best game we've made so far. And then also some small random side projects like a desktop pet, My Virtual Friend. We made it in 2 weeks, and hey, it almost made $1,000. So was it a complete waste of time? I don't think so. It was kind of a prototype that we ended up turning into a real game in a very short dev cycle, just to kind of work it out, basically. And then now, in about 2-3 weeks or something, we're going to be releasing our next game, which is kind of a game where we took what we learned about Overtime Anomaly. We looked at why did this game not perform as well as we had expected. We took all of the lessons from that, and we made another very small scoped game. I think total dev time is like 4 or 5 weeks. Kyoto Anomaly, more Exit 8 style and whatever. My goal is not here to market it to you. I think it's just that a lot of you guys, and this is something that there are definitely some purists, I would say, who do not do this full time, are like, oh my god, you just asset flipped your previous game into a new game with like a different environment asset. I don't think that's the case, and I think it's also the reality of, like I said, we need to survive. So game development wise, I think we're doing okay. We've actually managed to release quite a bunch of games already, and I think for the next of the year, to give you some idea, I think we're planning on like 3 more game releases or something. Like, we're working on one game right now that is still up in the air, but we have some other cool ideas, maybe leaning back towards the Unicycle Pizza Time learnings and all of that. I think the game development is going pretty solid. Now, I'm not just a game developer. We have to be honest here. You're watching this on YouTube. I am a game development YouTuber as well. And some people hate me for just that fact already. But I think we still got some decent numbers in the last year. We got 2 million views. We've gotten, I think, 15,000 extra subscribers who subscribe to this channel. And we've just made a lot of, honestly, banger content. I think this was also the last year I've released some of the best videos we've ever made. I think we've also kind of pushed the envelope in regards to game dev YouTube, especially with things like event coverage. I think it's something that no other game developer really does. When I go to events like Gamescom, I go to events like DevCom, and then Develop Brighton, Tokyo Games, whatever, and I go straight to the source, basically, of game developers who honestly are more successful than you and me, and I just talk to them and just learn from that, talk to publishers, talk about the entire experience and all of that, and share that with you. And I think there's some really good value in it. Those are videos that I'm really proud of. Also the videos of like, I asked 100 game developers XYZ, that once again are only possible through these events basically. And some other topics not related to these events, like for example, demystifying things like influencer outreach. And I think something else is like game trailers, content that not a lot of other game dev YouTubers talk about that much. So I do believe that YouTube, even if the growth numbers wise wasn't there completely, I still find it that for me myself, I have succeeded in that. With that said, YouTube is going to take a seat back for the next year. Last month, basically, I decided this with that idea of, okay, we're making more and more games now. Do I see myself as game dev or as a YouTuber? And for a very long time, I think almost 1.5 years or 2 years, basically, we uploaded 2 videos every week. And that's a lot of videos, because there was actually a third video as well every week on Patreon that we upload. If you want to know even more super cool in-depth stuff, I highly encourage you to check out our Patreon, where I talk about how to get your games covered on like IGN and whatever, and go really in-depth into topics like Kickstarter, publishers, whatever. I think there is just a lot of very valuable content on there that just algorithmically also wouldn't perform on YouTube whatsoever. And to be honest, if I can give you tips that can make you literally thousands of dollars or wishlists or whatever, I think it's only fair to charge a little bit of money for that. I'm going to be dropping the upload schedule on YouTube to 1 video a week for probably a pretty long time, because the view impact honestly wasn't there. It's not like we uploaded only 1 video instead of 2 videos, so we're going to get 50% of the views. No, so far it's been exactly the same, which I don't know why, to be honest. I'm a YouTuber, but I still don't fully understand how YouTube works, because there's only so many times I can make the video of like top 10 tips for new game developers and all of that. And a lot of the stuff I've covered like a year ago, and I look at those videos and I'm like, yeah, these don't need to be remade. Everything I said in there is still good. Now, with that out of the way, some of the staple videos like Gamescom and DevCon coverage are still going to remain. So if you're going to Gamescom or DevCon, by the way, then join our Discord, because probably we'll do like some small BiteMe meetup or something at this point, because we have a sizable audience, and I think it could just be nice to meet up with you guys in real life from time to time as well. This is not really supposed to be an earnings video, by the way, but I know that some people are going to like this still to hear. If I look at like how much money our studio has made in the last 12 months, it's 38,741 euros and like 52 cents or something, which is roughly between 40 and 45,000 US dollars, depending on the current geopolitical situation where you're watching this, which is honestly, if you're a solo developer, I think that's good. I think if you're a solo developer who, you know, you don't have any other like responsibilities or whatever, you can just go and move to Thailand or Bali or whatever, you're living a pretty good life. Now, the reality is we're not solo developers. We're, like I said, 3 people, 2 of which are full-time, 1 of which is me, and then we have our other programmer. We're not like out of the woods yet. We are still running at a loss, running on personal runway and all of that, but it's getting reduced. Like, I can stretch it out longer now because we are earning more, which I think is solid. And it also signifies to me, I still at least see more hope, because the idea and the whole strategy behind our studio is that long tail approach, where even games like Unicycle Pizza Time, 8 months after release basically at this point, still earn a few hundred, like $500, $600 every month. And the logic is simple. If we release 3 times a Unicycle Pizza Time, we have like basically a single wage that is already covered purely by that long tail. And then if you add on YouTube and Patreon and all of that, we should be a lot better. And I would hope, of course, for having one of our next games perform better than a Unicycle Pizza Time, be the next super viral mega hit or whatever. I think we have to be realistic though. And this is the whole tenet of this YouTube channel. Realism of like, hey, look, a lot of you guys who are considering game development are not gonna make it. I still don't know if I'm gonna make it, to be honest. I think so. I think at this point we have the work ethic and we have a track record to help us with that. But if you're looking at this and you're thinking of like, oh, I'll compress this timeline into 3 months and then start making my own like Unicycle Pizza Time games, I have bad news for you, buddy. Because I think we need to also talk about what life looks like as a full-time game developer. I think this is a big one. You're not gonna have balance. There is no way, I think, honestly, you can make this work with balance. A lot of people ask of like, oh, how is like your day in the life or whatever? Can you make like a day in the life video? And I'm planning on making one in like a month or something from now, but it's extremely boring. I wake up at 6:30 in the morning, I go sit behind my computer, I take a few breaks to eat, and then at like 9 or 10, usually 10, I just go to sleep. And the entire time I just work. And I know some people are like, oh my God, this isn't productive, whatever. But it's what we need, because if I don't work as much, the games probably wouldn't be made at the same time. And I know there's gonna be some keyboard warriors, but in all due respect, if you're not into this full time, you genuinely don't understand how fucking rough it is to run a game development studio. I hope at some point we can have more financial stability or whatever, but even then, I think at this point, I've reached a point where game development has become my identity. So what do I do as a hobby if I have like a day off? Not that I have days off, but like a calmer day, for example. I just prototype stuff, or I work on stuff that maybe doesn't have as much of an immediate monetary gain for BiteMe and the survival of the company, but it's still like game development related. Maybe it's a simple prototype that I came up with in a dream or something, or during the shower, or it's something completely else, making like some internal tools so we can develop faster. Stuff that is not entirely related to make more money, but still stuff that is related to the company or game development. So it's very unsexy, and that's also why there hasn't been a day in the life for so long, because it would literally be a 2-minute video of me wake up, brush teeth, sit behind a computer, and that's it. This leads us to, of course, the question that we always have to ask ourselves out loud. Do I suggest doing the same thing that I have? Maybe you're looking at this and maybe you just saw that number of 38,000 and you think like, yeah, if I could make that as a solo developer, it would be worth it, right? You're considering this, you're considering, should I quit my job? I think first of all, don't ask a 24-year-old guy on the internet about advice about that. The answer is no, I don't think so. And if you really are planning to, I'm very happy to announce that I have just launched my new course, 0 to Millionaire in 90 days. This is a joke, but the link's down below. Don't do it. There's a lot of reasons why I did it. And I think this is like the biggest it depends in the entire history of game development. Should you quit your job, yes or no? The answer generally is no, but this is also the answer that people on Reddit give you who have honestly never shipped a good game in their entire life. And there are, like I said, reasons why did I do it. First of all, my job was not the job anymore that I had originally applied for. There were things changing because the world has changed in the past few years, where I joined the workforce in 2020 when tech was booming and there were seemingly infinite job options and whatever, especially if you did computer science like me and not just game development. Then my job turned into something more and more salesy, and even though maybe I sound good on camera and I can talk convincingly, I hate sales. I did not want to sit in calls with Indian CTOs trying to convince them why they were going to drop 2 million on the new data center. That just wasn't my jam. That wasn't my thing. I just wanted to tinker with CLI configs and all of that and set up the networks. So that was one of the reasons that already made me want to quit my job regardless. And then the problem is, at least in Belgium, no other job paid as much money basically, because I was working for an American company in Belgium. If I wanted to do the same work at another Belgian company that I enjoyed, I would be taking basically a 50 or even more % pay cut anyway. And I had built up a pretty decent nest egg. And I was like, you know what? This was already more than a year into game development. Let me just take like a year off. Let's just do a year. And I have worked at a Cisco at the end of the day, which is a pretty good thing on your resume, and the industry was different. I can probably get a job pretty easily anyway if it doesn't end up working out. And I think maybe that ship has sailed now as well, so I'm kind of stuck in game development. But these were factors as well. In 2025, I think it doesn't make sense. I was right before that tech implosion basically was the point where I decided, okay, I'm gonna quit my job. It was like right at the very start. I think at this point also my Cisco company that I used to work in Belgium, they fired I think over 60% of their total workforce and then merged together with the Dutch one because it's just rough out there. But these are things as well. Also, I do not have kids. I do not have a wife. I am a back then 22 or 23-year-old guy with pretty high tolerance for risk and whatever. If I had to eat beans and toast for a year, I could eat beans and toast for a year. Our audience is a bit older already on average. I'm not calling you guys boomers, but that's kind of what you are. You probably have kids, you probably have a wife. And I'm sorry, but at that point, yes, I think the stability right now of having your corporate job that you kind of hate with colleagues you kind of hate is still a better solution, honestly, than risking it all on going into game development. Because yeah, we hear about those like 2% success stories, but me and the audience, and I talk to a lot of you guys, there is a very big amount of game developers who unfortunately don't make it, even though they did everything right in theory. I'm actually planning a video sitting down with one of those game developers coming soon-ish, probably in also like a month or something. So I hope this gave you a bit of an update on life on this channel. I don't think anything drastic is gonna change. We're not going to suddenly disappear. We're just gonna keep trucking along. We're gonna keep making games. The games are gonna keep getting better. That's all I had to say. I hope this was interesting. If you are a full-time indie game developer making your own games, leave a comment down below. I'm honestly very curious how the experience has been for you. Have you been doing better than me? Have you been doing worse than me? What has been working for you? What were like the biggest W's and the biggest L's of the last year? I think there's a lot of interesting stuff here. So thank you very much everyone for watching, sticking along with us, and here's to another year of game development. Because I think at this point, especially like I said with the market, I'm not gonna quit this. There's no real escape anyway. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.